Robert Saleh has gotten his chance before Eric Bieniemy. He's the new head coach of the Jets. It was pointing in that direction a couple of days ago when Saleh had his second interview with the Jets, but then something happened. He left the building, and yesterday Chris Sims and I were wondering what was going on because you let the guy out of the building, there's a chance somebody else is going to hire him before you can. But last night the news broke that Saleh is indeed the next coach of the New York Jets, succeeding Adam Gase. They go the other direction. They go with a defensive guy. Peter, I don't know how you feel about my theory. Let me run it by you. You may agree, you may disagree. I'm a firm believer in this age of the NFL to hire offensive coaches, especially with the Jets, because what do you got to do? You got to fix the quarterback. And if you're going to keep Sam Darnold, and Saleh's going to bring in Mike LaFleur, Matt's brother, to fix the offense, and if he fixes Sam Darnold, what's going to happen? Mike LaFleur is going to be a head coach. Now you got to find another offensive coordinator, and Sam Darnold's got to go through that, unlike a Sean Payton and Drew Brees, who have been joined at the hip for 15 years. I would always err on the side of an offensive coach because it's all offensive creativity and development and quarterback. So Saleh may end up being a great coach, may end up being a Hall of Famer. They may end up finally winning another Super Bowl in New York to put a trophy next to that 51-year-old one that they've got somewhere in storage. But if they have any success, Mike LaFleur is going to be coaching somewhere else. Just like Matt LaFleur got a job quickly as an offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur is going to be the next one to go.
Well, I think you're assuming that when Mike LaFleur goes, if he does go, because they've had great success, that whoever the quarterback coach is, who is running Mike LaFleur's offense, wouldn't get the job. And very often the quarterback coach in that system does get the job. And Mike, all I can say is this. You know, the New York Jets and their legion of woe is me fans would sign tomorrow for this organization to have so much success that their offensive coordinator gets a head coaching job somewhere. That would mean that they would have gone deep into the playoffs or won a Super Bowl or something like that. So, look, my feeling is if all things are equal and you've got a quarterback who is needy, yeah, just sign the offensive guy. Everybody, I think, thought when Arthur Smith went in there for his second interview or, whatever that was, everybody thought, okay, well, now it might be leaning toward Arthur Smith. But you have to get the guy absolutely categorically who's going to walk in front of a room and command the room. A couple of years ago, Bill Parcells told me when all these coordinators and brilliant offensive coaches were getting hired, and I don't say that, sarcastically. I mean it. I think some of these guys are really, really good, but Parcells said, that's really not the most important part of the job. The most important part of the job is standing in front of that team, commanding that team, and being able to walk into the locker room and sit by anybody's stool, which Parcells used to do for 45 minutes a day, and sit by anybody's stool and just talk to them and look them in the eye and tell them, you know what, you're not doing it right now. You're not doing, or you're saying, hey, if you keep playing this way, you're going to get more chances. And just having those areas of communication that are so important. And look, everybody, I've just described Robert Saleh, from everybody on the 49ers who know, who've had to deal with him. He's a great communicator, and he's also a commanding presence. So, look, I think the Jets got a good guy, and they'll be okay on offense, I think.
The first thing I thought of when he got the job, and I think back to other moments involving guys like Brett Favre, Tim Tebow, Adam Gase. When you go into that room with all the reporters there, that's your first chance to work the room. Now, that's not going to happen in a pandemic. You're not going to have 150 reporters jammed into a room and you walk in and you say excited 50 times, or you're looking all over the place like Gase was when he was just kind of overwhelmed by the moment. But it's still going to happen. It'll be a video conference, but that will be the first taste that the New York fan base and the New York media gets of Robert Saleh, and it's the ultimate pass-fail. I mean, they're already, look, the back. You're the back page darling already. They're calling him Mr. Green, the take on Mr. Clean, because he's got that bald head like the guy on the Mr. Clean product. It's that's what New York is going to do, and he's got to be ready for it. And in some ways, I mean, we don't know much about him because coordinators don't have that big presence, but he's got the chance to be the most charismatic coach of the Jets since Rex Ryan. And I think they need a little Rex Ryan right now, Peter. They need a little bit of that flash. They need a little bit of that sizzle to go along with the football.
You know, I just think of this, you know, Robert Saleh probably has been the most charismatic coordinator of the last couple of years in the NFL. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was the Seattle game on Monday Night Football in 2019, you know, the huge Seattle-San Francisco game. And Robert Saleh, and I'm doing this from memory, I think I'm right, was on camera 106 times that night. And so, you know, he's used to being, you know, you have your head coaches and you have your coordinators. Well, Robert Saleh was right in the middle, you know. And so to me, I look at him and I look at a guy who's used to the spotlight. He took a defense to the Super Bowl. If not for the last 8 minutes of that game, the first 52 minutes of that Super Bowl, Robert Saleh looked like Tom Landry and Vince Lombardi combined, you know? So all I can say is that I think the Jets did a good thing in not just worrying about the defense, but in getting a program coach and a good voice of the franchise. He's going to really enjoy that part of it, to be the spokesman that everybody in New York is talking about when you're hot, and everybody in New York is talking about when you're cold too. It's funny, living in New York, and I've lived here, either New York or New Jersey, for most of the last 30 years or so. And what's very interesting is that there's just this intensity that is almost as hot when you lose as when you win. And so he's going to have to adjust to that, you know. And I remember this year, Mike, I requested, after the Jets broke their schneid against the Rams, I requested to talk to a player or two or Adam Gase after the game, and the Jets refused, and they basically said, you know, it's only one win, they don't want to do it, and they don't want. But what it was, I think, is Adam Gase being all ticked off because everybody had just belittled him and his team so much for so long. That's what a coach has to get used to when you coach in New York.
You made a great point about all the times we've seen Robert Saleh on camera, and that is great organic marketing of the coach. And I know there are people around the league who are salty and resentful about this notion that you watch a 49ers game and it's constantly Saleh, 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 Saleh. Like he's directing the game and he's saying, put the camera on me. The camera's drawn to him. You know, I mean, you got the whole sideline you can choose from. If you've got a guy there who is a passionate, involved, and interesting coach, the camera's going to find you. And during the game, you're just coaching your team. So there's a natural charm, there's a natural charisma that does make him interesting, and that could make him an even better presence for the Jets. That's what they kind of need right now. Obviously, they need a good coach, but they also need someone who is going to play better with the media than Gase did. Gase just wasn't interested. Gase just didn't care. Gase just wanted to coach his team. You could tell by his demeanor anytime he spoke. He kind of had that shoulder thing and he hat pulled down and, you know, can we get this over with so I can get back to coach my team? You can get away with that if you're Bill Belichick and you've got pelts on the wall. You can't get away with that until you do. And I think Saleh is going to be a much more energetic, natural, charismatic presence who isn't going to be upset that he has to talk to the media. He understands it's part of the job, and he's going to engage it. And if he does, if he embraces it, and he brings the same kind of passion to it that he does to coaching, I think it's going to work well as it relates to making the connection with the fan base. We mentioned that Mike LaFleur is expected to be the offensive coordinator. You may have seen a couple of tweets on the screen in approval from first-rounders Mekhi Becton, the left tackle, and Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle. So the Jets now have their coach. They've had their GM in Joe Douglas. He's been working on building the team from the inside out, not the outside in. So, they've still got major pieces they need, especially if Saleh's going to have a defense like the one he had in San Francisco. But this is reason for hope in New York. As they see the Patriots dip, they can feel like maybe they've gotten a little bit of a lift, and maybe they'll meet in the middle at some point over the next couple of years.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.